Hello there and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. Can you believe January is almost over? We hope you're making progress on your goals, whether at work or in your personal life. Whatever it is, you've got this. And with that said, we'll be right back after this break.
The National Rural School Bus Program is getting smarter. With your child's student ID card, parents receive real-time notifications every time they board or exit the bus. Each card is unique and securely linked to the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information database. Tap on, tap off, and parents stay updated instantly. So, how do you register? Number 1. Visit jamaica-district.mysmartterm.com/bus-portal/registration. Number 2. Enter your child's details. Number 3. Upload supporting documents. Number 4. Submit your application. It's that easy. Safer, smarter, more secure. Register today and ride with peace of mind.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, January 27, 2026. Public sector auditors are being called on to strengthen trust in government institutions by tightening risk oversight and reinforcing accountability across the public service. The charge came at the Government of Jamaica's Audit Committee's conference on Wednesday. It was hosted by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service in collaboration with the Office of the Cabinet. Addressing auditors, public sector workers, and government officials, Finance Minister Favour Williams underscored the critical role audit professionals play in safeguarding integrity and institutional resilience. She emphasized that this was important as Jamaica advanced the goals of Vision 2030.
Your role is central to ensuring that public institutions operate with integrity, credibility, and consistency, reinforcing the trust that underpins effective functioning of government. Trust, however, cannot be strengthened through intention alone. It grows when risk oversight is robust, when systems operate with discipline.
The minister also highlighted the importance of audit committees in supporting Jamaica's recovery from Hurricane Melissa.
You are not simply members of audit committees. You are partners in national renewal. You're guardians of public trust and essential architects of the Jamaica, all of us, the Jamaica that we are building together. And so I challenge you. Lead boldly, serve faithfully, and act decisively. Let your work reflect the Jamaica we are determined to restore.
Delivering the keynote address, Chief Justice Brian Sykes urged auditors to lead with integrity, transparency, and professional courage, even in challenging circumstances.
Each committee member, I suggest, reads between the lines and they ask why, even when the why makes the room uncomfortable. So the law calls upon you to exercise what it calls care, diligence, and skill that a reasonable and prudent person would exercise. And that is expected even when unreasonable pressures are applied.
$270 million has been earmarked to fully repair the hurricane-damaged St. Elizabeth Infirmary in Santa Cruz. The allocation forms part of the government's effort to restore comfort and safety for staff and residents at affected infirmaries. The repairs will address damage to the kitchen, laundry area, sections of the male ward, staff quarters, and other affected spaces. During a tour of the facility last week, Minister of Local Government and Community Development Desmond McKenzie outlined the progress made so far. He said the first phase of the project had been completed, which included cleanup activities, removal of debris, leveling of the grounds, roof repairs, and securing the perimeter fence.
The second phase in putting up the retaining wall is well in progress, and the third phase will commence in short order with specific instructions that the third phase should be completed by March of this year, and then we look to go to the other phase of the work that is to be undertaken.
Matron of the Infirmary, Bianca Mitchell-Smith, expressed gratitude for the improvements being made to the facility.
We're more comfortable because initially, that we had both male and female on the same ward. And thankfully, because of the reconstruction of the female ward, we were able to move over the female residents. So the comfort level has improved for both the residents and staff.
The St. Elizabeth Infirmary is among several facilities across the island in urgent need of rehabilitation. Minister Mackenzie says it will cost approximately $1.2 billion to repair all infirmaries nationwide, many of which are more than 100 years old. Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James is set to receive a significant boost in bed capacity over the next month with 227 additional beds. 127 beds will come from the restoration of wards that were damaged in Hurricane Melissa and is expected to address severe overcrowding challenges at the facility. This is a direct result from the loss of 165 beds during the Category 5 system. During a tour on the weekend, Portfolio Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said the facility would begin phased reopening of renovated wards over the next 1 to 3 weeks, along with the installment of a dome with additional beds.
This week you will see some coming on stream. Over the next 2 weeks and 3 weeks, others will come on stream. And by the third week or so of February, we will see approximately 100 bed dome that will be placed just outside of A&E.
Measures are also being implemented for other challenges such as staffing and utility connectivity. Full pre-hurricane operations are expected to resume by March.
In the meantime, we encourage Jamaicans, communities, visit your health center, establish back your regular regime in terms of your doctor, take your medication, reduce the need for the possibility of ending up in A&E, because A&E will continue to be challenged, certainly leading into the next number of weeks.
Still on health, the National Council on Drug Abuse, NCDA, has moved to strategically tackle substance abuse through the opening of its Northeast Regional Office in Draxhall, St. Anne. At the opening recently, State Minister of Health and Wellness, Crystal Lee, said the strategic placement of the facility was significant as the parish was among the top 3 for substance misuse.
It stands as a firm security and commitment that we're serious about safeguarding public health, wellness, and public security in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Through the NCDA, we are growing fast as we continue to see the rapid growth of threat of substance use across our nation, particularly the rise of new psychoactive substances.
According to Minister Lee, the new office forms part of a wider public health strategy to expand access to prevention programs and to reach the most vulnerable. She asserts that communities must be empowered with reliable information, families equipped to recognize early warning signs, and young people provided with healthier alternatives and supportive environments. Executive Director of the NCDA, Paulette Spencer-Smith, reveals that alcohol and tobacco use in St. Anne is higher than the national average. This makes the regional hub critical for expanding access to substance abuse and mental health services where needed.
This is transformatory for how it is that we are going to impact this community, because now they can see me, they can have access to me. It is a walk-in. Every service we offer is absolutely free to the public. So here we are going to provide psychosocial support. We will do case management for all of our clients. We are offering therapy, both in counseling and psychoeducation. We are going to be doing harm reduction activities and a significant amount of promotion and public education.
And finally, the government has received 1,000 dignity kits for women and girls who have been displaced by Hurricane Melissa. The kits include hygiene items, medical supplies, and other essential products. The donation was made by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, and were received by Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, on Friday.
I want to personally thank the UNFPA, not only for these kits, but for standing shoulder to shoulder with us as a steady international development partner. As we accept this generous donation, I renew my commitment that in every policy, in every program, in every conversation about recovery, we will center the dignity of our people.
Deputy Director for the UNFPA Caribbean, Jenny Carlson, says the kits form part of a wider response to the impact of disasters on women and girls.
This handover today is really a reinforcement of our partnership and our shared pledge to keep women and girls safe in Jamaica. They are much more than essential supplies. They are symbols of our solidarity, our compassion and respect for women and girls and young people, or the most vulnerable people that we know have been impacted by Hurricane Melissa.
The donation forms part of ongoing collaboration between the Government of Jamaica and UNFPA to support recovery efforts following Hurricane Melissa. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
Are you interested in buying land or property? Here are the steps you should follow. Step 1. Find out who is legally authorized to sell the property. Step 2. Ensure all property tax payments are up to date. Step 3. Consult an attorney at law who will guide you through the process and protect your interests. You can also use eLand Jamaica to check on matters pertaining to your property purchase. For more information, contact the National Land Agency at 876-750-5263 or 876-946-5263. Email asknla@nla.gov.jm or message us on WhatsApp at 876-418-5089. The National Land Agency. One agency, one goal to serve you better.
There's always something happening at Jamaica House to uplift and empower Jamaicans everywhere. Let's get the latest.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness last week attended the Jamaica Stock Exchange 21st Investments and Capital Markets Conference. During his keynote presentation to leaders in the financial sector, he informed that changes were being considered for the country's financial regulatory framework. He stressed that these changes were not a deregulation of what exists, but enabling a smarter framework to preserve confidence, unlock capital, expand markets, and position Jamaica's systems to support the next phase of national development.
As we approach the upcoming budget presentation, the government will be bringing forward initiatives that are consistent with this approach, initiatives that strengthen our capital markets, modernize elements of the regulatory framework, and ensure that Jamaica's financial system is fully equipped to support economic resurgence and long-term resilience.
According to Dr. Holness, the current framework was developed in an era with primary focus on risk containment, stabilizing an economy that was emerging from crisis, and protecting the system from failure. However, acknowledging the success achieved through the framework, Dr. Holness says the government now has a responsibility to build on that success.
It is therefore time, deliberately, responsibly, and transparently, to revisit and modernize elements of the financial regulatory framework, not to weaken stability, but to ensure that regulation is aligned with evolving risk profiles, increased market sophistication, innovation in financial products and instruments, and the imperative for capital markets to play a more dynamic role in fueling economic resurgence and resilience.
Dr. Holness firmly states that stability remains non-negotiable and financial soundness will be protected.
Stability must now serve as a platform for growth, not a ceiling for growth.
Another important engagement for Prime Minister Holness was finalizing critical road projects for the upcoming fiscal year with key agencies. An extensive meeting was held with the National Works Agency NAA and the National Road Operating and Constructing Company Limited NROC on Tuesday. Dr. Holness says preparation for projects began from as early as October last year.
The work involves the presentation of the plans for the upcoming financial year. And those plans include what new highways we're going to build, what new roads we're going to repair, new bridges, and essentially all the civil works needed to ensure that Jamaica has a world-class infrastructure.
Dr. Holness also received updates from other agencies on priority projects and financing for the upcoming 2026-2027 financial year. These include representatives of the Housing Agency of Jamaica, the Port Authority of Jamaica, the Development Bank of Jamaica, and the Urban Development Corporation. An update was also presented on the Waste to Energy project.
You represent a force moving towards excellence. You represent a country determined to become safer, stronger, and more resilient. And you represent the hope for the future where Jamaica's children can grow up free from fear.
That's the encouragement shared by Prime Minister Holness with 287 graduates of the National Police College on Wednesday. As the men and women transition into the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Prime Minister Holness urged them to conform to the principles and values of the JCF.
Regardless of what the common knowledge is, and the common understanding is, and the common behavior is, and the common expectations are, you must always aspire to the highest standards. In particular, when you wear your uniform.
Dr. Holness told the newly minted officers that they are now ambassadors of law and order and public trust and have chosen a path that demands courage, discipline, integrity, and service above self. And finally, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness expressed condolences on the passing of Stephen Cat Kaur. He died at the age of 69. Dr. Holness hailed the distinguished musician as a towering figure in our cultural history and one of the architects of Jamaica's global musical legacy. As a founding member and musical director of Third World, Cat Kaur helped shape a sound that carried Jamaica's rhythm, spirit, and message to every corner of the world. He was awarded the Order of Distinction, honoring a lifetime dedicated to music and nation building through the arts. Dr. Holness said Cat Kaur was a cultural ambassador in the truest sense, representing Jamaica with dignity, excellence, and pride. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
This is your same old fastest man in the world, and you're watching Jamaica Magazine.
Thank you so much for staying with us right here on Jamaica Magazine. For many Jamaicans living with diabetes, vision loss can happen without warning. This feature, up next, looks at how new screening tools are helping doctors detect diabetic retinopathy earlier, protecting sight and improving eye care.
Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning is revolutionizing nearly all industries, including healthcare. From development of drugs and vaccines to improving medical diagnosis and treatment, technology is a game changer, lowering costs and improving efficiency. And as the global health ecosystem rapidly evolves, Jamaica is taking on a proactive role.
The world is moving in that direction. Incorporation of AI is becoming a big thing, and so it becomes very relevant to what we see here in Jamaica.
At the University of the West Indies UWI Mona campus, Ricardo Harrison, who is in his final year as an engineering student, developed a prototype to detect diabetic retinopathy using artificial intelligence AI-powered computer vision. The project was guided by proposers from the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. Gerardo Loza and Nikita Greenidge and supervised by Head of Biomedical Engineering at UWI Mona, Sasha Gay Wright.
Within the Faculty of Engineering, in their final year, all of our students are required to do what is called a capstone project. So this is a year-long project where students try to create a prototype or create a solution to a need that exists. Now, in order to get these capstone projects, we'll either propose them as lectures, or we'll invite persons from society, persons from industry, as well as persons within the academic space, such as our collaborators. So this particular project was a proposal made by the University of Leeds, and we gave it out to the students, and Ricardo chose it.
Diabetic retinopathy DR is a complication of diabetes affecting the eyes and is a leading cause of blindness among working-age adults and a major cause of vision loss worldwide for people aged 30 to 64 years. Integrating AI as part of the diagnostic tools is significant for early detection and prompt intervention to mitigate the risk of vision loss and prevent visual impairment in over 90% of DR cases.
The whole purpose of this project is to create a system that is able to capture a photo of the retina, and from that photo the system is able to view different or process different parts of the image to tell whether or not it's severe, proliferative, moderate, mild, or healthy eye.
The innovative solution is intended to provide an alternative for low-resource hospitals, where typical diagnostic machines are large, expensive, and unportable. It's a model that improves on existing solutions by offering a lightweight, locally deployable system with a user-friendly interface designed for non-specialist healthcare workers. And it's a model Harrison believes can benefit many persons in Jamaica and the Caribbean, where access is limited.
There has been many others out there, but they use different deep learning techniques. Mine specifically use ResNet 152 version 2, and with that it has very deep layers, and due to the complexity of these diabetic retinopathy images and the subtle details between them, I would need a model such as that to be able to distinguish effectively between those. So I use a 20D lens, and the 20D lens zooms in onto the back of the retina 3.3 times, and I use a smartphone to capture the photo that is shown in front of the lens. And from that photo, I then upload it to Google. So I hosted a model on Google, which after the photo is uploaded, the model processes the photo, looks for subtle details within the image to say, hey, this shows signs of an healthy eye or diabetic retinopathy, and with that it sends it back to the app and displays it on the phone.
To further support diabetic healthcare, the system also includes a patient monitoring feature that tracks vitals such as heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and oxygen level, providing a more comprehensive patient health assessment.
To measure the blood pressure, you need to go to this page here. As you can see, it says the status is connected, meaning it's connected to this device here.
The challenge to build out the model was a first for Harrison, but one which he prides on his own drive to conquer every challenge and provide a solution to a problem.
I've never really taken on any project that involved AI before, and from my perspective, I like a good challenge. I had the help of my supervisors and my lecturers. Along with that, I had a data set from Kaggle which I used to train the model. The road was tough and it was pretty tiresome, but with the support of my peers, I was able to effectively complete the project.
Based on the performance of the entire system, this young, bright Jamaican is hoping to have his new diagnostic machine integrated in the clinical setting, which will reduce the money spent on expensive devices, benefiting the public.
Within the Caribbean, there tend to be not enough of these devices to aid in diabetic retinopathy detection. So my project is really aimed at creating something that's cost-effective and easily integratable, and makes the whole process easier for the healthcare professionals. It's at 78% ready for integration in hospitals. And I'm very interested in seeking more opportunities or more support in bringing it further and possibly increasing its current percentage integration. Hopefully with external support and a more effective and good quality camera, I'll be able to at least achieve 95% for integration.
The amount of sugar persons consume tend to affect their vision later in life, and while moderation is urged in consumption, early eye checks is critical to avoid the unfortunate socioeconomic burden associated with diabetes and its optical complications.
There isn't a tendency for these persons to go by the hospital to say, hey, I need to check to see if I have diabetic retinopathy. A lot of them don't even know what diabetic retinopathy is. So I think with the inclusion of this device into hospitals, it will bring more awareness.
As the innovative minds of our youth continue to sprout in key areas of development, Jamaica, through institutions such as our universities, is cementing a bright future where AI and machine learning is set to transform healthcare and contribute to better patient outcomes in an economically sustainable way.
Keep watching Jamaica Magazine. Etana says so.
Mathematics coach at the Ministry of Education and Youth, Tamika Lodge Fenton, is championing a transformative approach to how students in Jamaica perceive their mathematical abilities. The vision is to dismantle the barriers that separate students into math and English categories.
We have several students in our Jamaican society that are struggling with basic computational skills. However, they find that they think they are not math students. They think they're good at English and they can't do math. That is not true. So we need to change the mindset of our students to let them realize that there's no math or English person. We are all able to do math and English. All of us. It just means that how I approach math may be different from how you approach math. So effort is what matters. And if each of our children understand that they're all math students, awesome. We'd have a numerate society. And that is our key goal as educators, to make sure our students are numerate, to function well, communicate with numbers, understand numbers, and be better citizens in our Jamaican society.
By instilling this mindset, the belief is that students will not only become more proficient in math, but will also become better citizens, contributing positively to Jamaican society. Jamaica Post is committed to being your preferred logistics partner. Enjoy the convenience of 3 to 5 days for international shipments at competitive rates and next business day delivery for local packages. Take advantage of our fast, reliable and ever-evolving services: zip mail, click and ship, fast track, EMS, parcel service, registered mail, corporate mail service and private letterbox. Access customer service support and track packages online. Visit our post offices island-wide and premium service centers at select locations. For more information, go to jamaicapost.gov.jm. Conditions apply.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Happy birthday to everyone celebrating today, and to those marking a special anniversary, we wish you all the very best. Remember to visit our website in the meantime at jis.gov.jm for more news you can use. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.